Hi everyone, I am very happy to be back with another video. Today we're going to be analyzing a video called Do Alpha Women Destroy Marriages by a man named Patrick Bet-David. Patrick has over 6 million subscribers, and he's another one of these peddlers of dangerous misogynist content. You'll notice he cites sources to try to come off as scholarly and intelligent, but he pulls data and says a lot of stuff, but doesn't seem to actually come to any conclusion. It doesn't seem like he actually has a point other than riling up a bunch of women haters into hating women even more. Let's watch.
So do marriages fail when the wife is the alpha? And why do I ask this question for you? Because this last weekend we're at the Vault Conference. Nearly 6,000 people in the room. The Rock is there. We're having a great time. People showing up from 100 plus countries. It's an incredible event. And at one moment, I won't show the video. I won't even talk about who the person is. But everybody has the ability to grab the mic and talk about if they had a breakthrough. A lady gets up there and she says, we talk about all this stuff, but I want my husband to have a breakthrough because I'm tired of being the breadwinner. I'm tired. I want him to make more money. I want him to do this. And I've always been providing and I've been working and I've been doing this. And we're all listening to this and we're like, whoa, very uncomfortable, because I thought for a fact her husband's not going to be in the room. I said, but are you here with your husband? I am. I said, does your husband have your permission to speak? Everybody kind of looks at her. And I said, here's all I'll say. I'll give you 5 seconds, sir. I don't know who he is because I don't know where he's sitting. And she kind of looks to her left, but I don't know where it's sitting because they're pointing. I said, I'll give you 5 seconds if you want to speak. If not, I'm going to move on because I don't want to put you on the spotlight. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He doesn't stand up. I said, no problem. Marriage is hard. It's not easy. Do your thing. We'll move on. And the next, topic of discussion, I said, if you guys want to open up the next day and talk about it, we'll be here. If you don't, totally get it as well. Next day, they don't come to the mic. Everybody was waiting for it. Everybody knew. Nothing happens. We continue. So then the conversation starts. Well, we're going to dinner. Does it work? Does it not work? I don't know. This is not about this. It's not about what's wrong with that. What's wrong if the woman's the alpha and all this other stuff? Look, I got a bunch of different data for you. 70% of divorces are initiated by the wife.
Note this stat he's bringing up about 70% of divorces being initiated by women, because we're going to go into that topic a little later in the video.
I got some data and I got some points on if it's a good idea or not. And at the end of the day, if you agree with me, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you don't agree with me, comment below and let us know how you feel.
So there's a lot to unpack, even in this little 1-minute story he just told. One thing I want you to notice before moving forward is how the first example he gives of an alpha woman is really just an example of an asshole woman. He describes a woman embarrassing her husband in front of thousands of people and then implies that this is what marrying an alpha woman will get you. His whole point of leading the video with this story is to immediately anger the guys watching this. Once they're angry, they no longer have the ability to think rationally, and they'll be susceptible to Patrick's brainwashing, even though he's not making any real points at all. Patrick is trying to reinforce this narrative in their minds that dating a woman who doesn't submit to them is a recipe for perpetual humiliation. He's not using the word submissive specifically, but if we look at the definition of the term alpha, it says, denoting the dominant animal or human in a particular group, denoting a person who has a dominant role or position within a particular sphere. So what's the opposite of dominant? Submissive. So he's basically saying you need to find yourself a submissive woman or else this is going to happen to you.
So let me show you some data here from 1972 till 2022, husbands being the main breadwinner, wives being the main breadwinner, and egalitarian, which means the husband and the wife make 40 to 60% of the household income together. And if those statistics have gone up, have gone down, what it looks like. So here's what it looks like. The black are husband's primary or sole breadwinner, okay? Pink is egalitarian, they both make money. Yellow is wife as the primary or sole breadwinner of the household. In 1972, 85% of husbands were the primary breadwinner. In 1972, egalitarian was only 11% husband and wives, and wives were only 5%. Remember, this was only 52 years ago. Fast forward to today, husbands dropped 30% from 85% to 55%. They lost 30%. That's a lot right there, right?
They lost 30%. Watch how he's selling this as something that men lost, even though they were oppressing women and keeping them from reaching their full potential and keeping them out of the workforce. This is like back in the day when white people were claiming black people were taking their jobs, when black people started being allowed to enter the workforce. It's a disgusting display of entitlement and supremacy men have tried to claim over women.
They lost 30%. That's a lot right there, right? Egalitarian went from 11% to 29%. That means a third of marriages, both the husband and the wife makes the same amount of money, but the wives went from 5% to 18%, nearly 4x, making more money than the husbands do as the main breadwinner. Somebody may say, what's wrong with that? We want equality. We want this. We want that.
Let's take a look at these years. So he's pointing out that from 1972 to 2022, the husband being the primary or sole breadwinner has dropped 30%. Now moving forward, he's going to try and sell this as the reason why marriages are less likely to work out in the current era when women are making money and are allowed to be in the workforce. Now, for the men watching him who are undereducated, they love cute little charts like this because they get to say, see, the proof is in the data. Marriages were happier back when women stayed at home and took care of the kids. But let's go back to the 1970s and do a little research. Although the Equal Pay Act, passed in 1963, required men and women to be paid equally when doing the same work, which we all know that still isn't even happening today, it wasn't until the Equal Credit Opportunity Act was passed in 1974 that women could get their own credit cards in their own name. The ECOA was originally introduced in 1973 by Representative Bella Abzug and was signed into law by President Gerald Ford on October 28, 1974.
Until the 1970s, women, even those with college degrees and high-paying jobs, couldn't get their own credit cards in their own names if they were married. So Mrs. So-and-so would be on the credit card. And what that meant was that the credit history accrued only to him. Single women face their own set of challenges. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act was a really important first step. It made it illegal for banks to discriminate in lending based on sex or marital status. And we really have Emily Card to thank. She played a pivotal role in making that legislation happen.
The thing that stood out the first day was there was a press release in my mailbox. It was about the National Commission on Consumer Finance. It said, women are having trouble getting access to credit according to our witnesses. Somebody actually came up to me and said, Emily, don't plan to do that. You don't need to be involved in that issue. And I said, why not? But he didn't have any idea what I'd already experienced. So I asked the senator, I said, could I work on this?
So Emily took it upon herself to convince Senator William Brock that he needed to lead the charge on getting women access to credit. He was resistant, he didn't think there was such a problem, and she set out to prove to him that in fact this was a major problem across the United States. As soon as feminist organizations opened their doors in the late 1960s and early 70s, they started getting letters from women all around the country complaining about the treatment that they were getting at banks. Years before Emily Card started working on this, some people had started trying to get it into the law, particularly Bella Abzug, who was a Democratic representative from New York City. Bella Abzug wasn't on the banking committee, so Emily actually coordinated with groups like NOW, the National Organization for Women, and the Women's Legal Defense Fund, and others, to get that evidence in front of Senator Brock. She made sure that he received thousands of letters from women explaining why this was a problem.
He said, well, he was sure there was a problem, but he didn't know if a federal law was needed. He thought it could be a states' right issue. I said, no, it won't work that way because the banks are controlled nationally. We have to have a national law.
She used all of her research skills, she used all of her politicking skills. They wrote the legislation, and Emily Card got to be on the floor of the Senate on the day that it passed. The history of women's financial independence is not just about banks and credit cards. It's part of a much bigger story. That story includes women's unequal access to high-paying jobs, to the problems of unequal pay for when men and women do the same jobs. These are problems that affect white women and women of color differently. Women with disabilities face their own sets of economic challenges as well. While the Equal Credit Opportunity Act didn't take care of all of that, we do need to understand that it was a major step in the right direction, and that making sure that women had equal access to credit is an important turning point in American history.
So again, we're going back to a time when women back in 1972 could not even get a credit card in their own name. If this isn't infantilizing women, I don't know what is. And the fact that Patrick is saying this was only 50 years ago, yeah, this was only 50 years ago that women gained some sort of independence that allowed them to be fully functional, self-determined individuals. So yeah, Patrick, a lot has changed in 50 years because women don't have to give their bodies up to a man to get financial security in return. This is what women have fought for, and this is what women today are fighting against when they continuously vote to give men more and more control over policies, over our bodies. This was over 50 years ago, and women today have gotten so comfortable, they've forgotten how close we are to this level of oppression. It seems a lot of women in this country pick xenophobia, racism, and patriarchy over anything else, and it's frightening.
But the wives went from 5% to 18%, nearly 4x, making more money than the husbands do as the main breadwinner. Somebody may say, what's wrong with that? We want equality. We want this. We want that. Now, according to Forbes Advisor, these are the reasons why people get married, and also different reasons why people get divorced. Marriage, number one. Financial security, 42%. Then it's companionship. Then love, formal act of making a commitment to start a family, convenience, medical insurance, legal reasons, societal or family pressures.
Never, ever look at stats like this and take them seriously if the genders are not separated. It makes all of the following arguments null and void. Financial security is going to be a much higher reason to get married for women, since men can't even stand the idea of a woman making more than them. They're literally asking for women to be hypergamous, but then whining about women being hypergamous. The double talk is crazy, and if I were to guess, love and companionship I'd bet scores higher for women than in men. Let's go back to where he says
70% of divorces are initiated by the wife.
70% of divorces are initiated by the wife. This is another one of those red pill talking points we hear so often. Let's take a look at some of the reasons why women file for divorce. So here's a BBC article from May 2022, written by Katie Bishop. In the U.S. specifically, where no-fault divorce is legal in all 50 states, some estimates put the figure at 70%. In the UK, ONS statistics showed women petitioned for 62% of divorces in England and Wales in 2019. In most societies, divorce has been a relatively recent phenomenon. In the UK, divorce was extremely uncommon before 1914, with just one divorce in every 450 marriages in the first decade of the 20th century. Now, more than 100,000 couples in the UK get divorced every year, and in the US, around half of marriages end in divorce. As Heidi Carr, a psychologist and expert on domestic violence at the US-based Education Development Center, explains, it's no coincidence that the rise of divorce has coincided with women's liberation. Women's entry into the workforce enabled them to leave unhappy marriages for the first time. They were no longer financially bound to remain in abusive partnerships or relationships where their needs were not being met, and women thus began to initiate divorces at a greater scale. Gilza Fort Martinez in Florida, US-based licensed couples therapist who specializes in conflict resolution, says because men are usually socialized to have lower emotional intelligence than women, this can lead to female partners feeling unsupported and doing much of the emotional labor in the relationship. Women also tend to gain fewer emotional benefits from marriage, which could make single life seem more appealing. While married men experience multiple perks, including living longer and earning more money, women don't usually benefit from their relationships in the same way. Instead, they bear the brunt of household and child-rearing labor, which can leave working women overwhelmed and stressed.
Now, these are the reasons and factors why there's a divorce. Lack of family support, infidelity, lack of compatibility, lack of intimacy, too much conflict or arguing, financial stress, lack of commitment, parenting differences, marrying too young, opposing values or morals, substance abuse, domestic violence, and last but not least, pursuing different lifestyles. So ladies, you may want to do woosah or earmuffs if you don't want to watch it or skip the video because you're going to get pissed off. I'm going to read you a letter. Okay, this is an article from Glamour. It's an open letter. And the title of this article says, An Open Letter from an Alpha Woman Unable to Love. Okay. So you read this article. This is written by a lady named Suzanne Venker, who wrote a book called The Alpha Female's Guide to Men and Marriage, is what she talks about. So the writer of this article, Elizabeth Logan, wrote this 7 years ago. I'll read you the second paragraph. She says, Venker's thesis is that marriages don't work when one partner, namely the woman, is demanding, unyielding, and unable to be pleased by anything the other partner does. And sure, don't be an asshole to your spouse. Might seem like a basic tenet of marriage, but Venker explains this is actually a big problem with our current generation that needs to be addressed right now. Why? Because women, having been groomed to be leaders rather than to be wives, those leadership qualities like being bossy, demanding, which will definitely help you to get ahead in the office, are apparently antithetical to the three things that Venker says makes a good marriage: respect, compromise, and sex. But of course, you might be thinking, wait, it's totally possible for a woman to be both a leader and a wife, but please trust Ms. Venker when she says it's absolutely not.
So Patrick decides to use Suzanne Venker as the woman who knows what women should be doing to be happy in their marriages. But when you actually dig deep into her ideologies, her whole goal is to teach women what to do to make men happy in their marriages. She says very little about a woman's happiness. Patrick is using the classic, don't listen to me say it, listen to a woman say it trick. Suzanne Venker is a conservative who has some of the most ridiculous ideologies I've ever heard. Suzanne Venker is Kansas Owens for Black people. She plays for the other team.
So Black Lives Matter is actually harmful to Black lives. And I will say this also, I will not whatsoever, ever take Black Lives Matter seriously.
She says it's absolutely not. This attitude of leadership may get women ahead at work, says Venker, but when it comes to love, it will land them in a ditch. Don't ask what the hell attitude of leadership is supposed to mean. Just go with her on this one. Work skills are the opposite of love skills, okay?
Work skills are the opposite of love skills. So according to Suzanne, the more you work, the less you love. So does that mean that men are supposed to work, but women are supposed to love? Women deserve as much love as they're giving, but I guess the traditional man is just supposed to fill up the bank account and he's completed his duties for the family. Again, according to Suzanne, the more you work, the less you love. Suzanne is the ultimate gaslighter. She's convincing women that having skills and passions and goals outside of the husband and home aren't going to work for women when there are plenty of women out here doing just that. It seems to me the only way for both the wife and husband to be happy, according to Suzanne's logic, is if they both work an equal amount so that they can give each other the same amount of love. Why have the man do all the work, leaving him no ability to give love at the end of the day? I think it's obvious why. Women are brainwashed to be used and accept less love received than love given. This is what a lot of women are used to, and in the past, it doesn't seem to have been very fulfilling. Plus, where are all these men that can sustain an entire family on one salary? I want you to take a look at this chart. This chart displays the annual income required to cover a 50-30-20 budget. 50% goes to necessities, 30% goes to discretionary spending, and 20% goes to savings. Now, of course, I'm sure these amounts need to be increased now that we have a tariff-happy, bankruptcy-having con artist in the White House. But I digress. So we can see that on the lowest end, we have West Virginia at $79,000 a year. And on the high end, we have Massachusetts, which comes in at $116,000 a year. I lived in Massachusetts for 6 years. It is crazy expensive. Now let's look at another set of data. This chart shows men's real median annual earnings from 2020 to 2021, and it's broken down by ethnicity. This is a chart from Fidelity that shows the average U.S. salary by state. So we see in West Virginia, the average salary is $54,000, and in Massachusetts, it's $85,000. So comparing these two charts, it seems we have a problem here. Men don't make enough money on average to ask for the submissive traditional wife. So it's really strange to me that so many men want to be the breadwinners and have a submissive traditional wife when they're incapable of holding up their end of the bargain, which is bringing in enough money in order to provide a comfortable life for your spouse and your children. Why would a woman want to sign up for a life of poverty because you don't make enough money to take care of a household when she can easily go and get a job herself. Now, it's easy for Patrick Bet-David to have this I want a trad wife point of view because he got rich off of ripping people off in an MLM scam and has the funds to support his family. But he's so far removed from the life of the average man that he doesn't understand that it's not plausible for most men to want a stay-at-home wife because whoever ends up marrying him is going to have a lower quality of life. The system is just no longer set up in America for families to be comfortable on one salary.
The more you work, the less you love. Got it? Why did I think it was a good idea to bring a cover letter and resume on a date? Why do I pester every boyfriend with weekly timesheets and ask to be reimbursed for all expenses incurred on the job? All right, because I'm a workaholic monster. Now watch this. She continues, okay? Venker says every relationship requires a masculine and a feminine energy to thrive. If women want to find peace with men, they must find their feminine. That is where their real power lies. Being feminine isn't about being beautiful or svelte, or even about wearing high heels, although those things are nice. Being feminine is a state of mind. It's an attitude. She continues, in essence, being feminine means being nice, writes Venker. Niceness by women is the key to the healthy relationships that women are solely in charge of maintaining. In case you're not fully convinced of the wisdom of the radical be nice doctrine, Venker has sources. She quotes quite seriously a man named Chuck who once commented on her website, a strong woman is awesome, but she must be inviting and be able to mesh into an actual relationship. Needing to dominate and overpower, that is a no-go. Venker also quotes Jackie Kennedy. There are two kinds of women, those who want power in the world and those who want power in bed.
No offense to Mrs. Kennedy, but a 1960s first lady is not someone I'm going to listen to on how to live my best life. I mean, everyone knows that her husband cheated on her constantly. I feel sad for the women who buy into this crap. And if you read the comments on this video, you will realize that women, in fact, do buy into this crap.
So look, if you want to read the rest of the open letter, you can find it and go through it. But when you talk about egalitarian, husband and wife make about the same amount of money, 40 to 60% of the income, or wife's the breadwinner. If the wife's the breadwinner, you guys choose to have kids. Here's an article from Fortune. Most married women still carrying a heavier burden at home. So paid work, husbands more than wife. Leisure, husbands more than wife. Caregiving, look at wives, more than husbands. Housework, more than husbands.
He's literally proving that no matter what a woman does, men are not going to step up and help. It's absolutely hilarious that he's showing data that men will still leave you to do all the work, even if you work as much as he does. Why isn't Patrick saying anything about how horrible and selfish that makes the husband? Patrick, this is literally a PSA stating all the reasons why women don't benefit from marriage. Statistically, women who never marry are actually much more financially stable over a lifetime than women who get married at least once in their lifetime. So he's actually talking us out of having any incentive to marry at all. Thank you for your service, Patrick. My work is done here.
So what happens if you're like, hey, I went to school, I'm going to beat my husband, I'm going to make more money than him, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. All right. And you're like, well, my kids are still expecting me to be a mother. And a mother has a burden. They don't want to be an average mother. They want to be a good mother. They want to deliver. Great. And you still are expected to be a wife. It's a lot of work. And you still are expected to be a sister. It's a lot of work. Sisters like to be good sisters, right? You still are expected to be a good daughter. Girls want to be good for their mom and dad as well. It's a different kind of a burden a girl has than a son has, right?
I'm honestly really confused by him bringing this up. It just makes men look bad. What is this extra pressure he's referring to? It sounds like he's making the case that women can be relied upon by kids, siblings, parents, and men just fall short when it comes to being supportive of their family members. According to Patrick, it seems like men are only really good for a paycheck, and it's really women who hold the family together. So why shouldn't women just make their own paychecks and eliminate the man altogether? All of this extra pressure he speaks of just seems like a really bad deal for women.
It's a different kind of a burden a girl has than a son has, right? And then you have your own things you want to do. Taking care of your health, taking care of yourself. So imagine you're like, I've bought into this concept of beating men. I'm same as you. Equality, feminism. Yes, I can kick your ass and I'm making more money than my brother, than my husband, than my cousin. I'm freaking burned out. I don't want this, but I don't respect the man I marry because now officially I'm the husband, she's a wife. I don't want to be married to a wife. I want to be married to a husband. You indirectly have taken that away from him. Now, somebody said, well, this is on the men. Yes, I don't disagree. This is why I recommend men reading the book No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's a tough book, by the way, when you read it. You're going to be challenged a lot, right? But somebody looks at it and say, yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of want my husband to be the husband. And normally that transition of going like this, it's so big because he's been like that to you, gradually going like this. And now you want me to change overnight? Oof, tough to do. Right?
So Patrick is saying that women need to make less money than their husbands to make sure that their husbands don't shrivel up and die from a lack of masculinity. But how are women supposed to try and find the few guys that make a ton of money if they want to be stay-at-home housewives? What about the women that are dating men that are making a little bit more than them? Do they have to turn down promotions so senior sassy pants doesn't get triggered? Oh, and make sure you don't get any bonuses. Oh, and make sure your parents don't die because they might leave you some money and then your husband's balls are going to shrink and fall off and they're going to regrow on you. Wouldn't it just be easier if men would just stop being so insecure? I guess not, because that would require men to work on themselves and they don't like that.
Because he's been like that to you, gradually going like this. And now you want me to change overnight? Oof, tough to do. Right? And that's exactly what happened at this event. Another lady got up and says, I'm on my second marriage. First marriage was 10 years. Second marriage was 10 years as well. It's probably not going to be working out. It's like, why? Maybe if that's what you're solving for, just money, totally get it. But if it's more than that, it's tough to do. Watch this article here. A couple things on marriage.com. Why this doesn't work out. Wives playing the mother. The wife starts treating her husband like a child. So if the boss babe is making all this money, look at your husband as your son. And you look at your husband and say, you don't respect your son. You didn't marry a man to be your son. You married a man to be your man. You don't look at him like that anymore. It's your son. Hey, clean up. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? You talk to your husband like that? You don't respect your husband if you talk like that, right? Compare him to other men. You know what other men do? You know, da-da-da-da-da.
I love how the language is always structured to make the woman the villain. Wife starts treating her husband like a child. Women only treat their husbands like a child when they act like children, Patrick. I mean, they really leave women no options. Should she just leave? If she leaves, then she's the villain for being shallow. Oh, she didn't really love him in the first place. Women have no loyalty. She only left him because he doesn't know how to load a dishwasher or wash his dirty socks. If she stays and says, hey, I really need help, now she's emasculating him and treating him like a kid. Now she's trying to be an alpha boss bitch, an alpha female. It's because she was allowed into the corporate world that she demands her spouse do adult things like an adult, because he's an adult.
Emotional manipulation, the aggression, all these other things that's going on, other interests, fighting, comparison, neglecting, and then, you don't do as much as I do. Do you understand what I do for this man? Do you know what I'm saying? Finally, the man's like, dude, listen, man, I can't do this anymore. That's what's going on today. And unfortunately, many women bought into this feminist movement, and there is no I want to get a refund. Many lost 10 years. Some lost 20 years. Some lost 30 years. Some are in their 60s, not married, no kids, but they're a boss babe. Was that the right choice? If it's what you wanted, all in. But if you're watching this and you're kind of like, man, I do not want that part. Well, you may want to consider changing your strategy before it backfires on you. In most cases like this, the husband is so burned out and the wife is so done that they're like, dude, I don't even know if we can go through this or not. But if you believe in God, you go to church, you have a community you're a part of, and it's a true decision that you guys want to make collectively together and you want to find a way to make it work with your kids, with a lot of effort and focus on it, it could work. But it will be very hard and it will be a lot of work. But for some of you that are maybe single, not married yet, you can always, they say wisdom is when you can borrow from other people's experiences to learn from them. This is an opportunity to be wise, not just smart. Again, ladies, before you come and slash my tires, how dare you make a video like this and make my husband and I argue? Fellas, I'm also talking to you. Why did you let this happen to you? Huh? Who told you this was the right thing to do? Did the mob screaming off the top of their lungs convince you and close you that you need to be this feminine husband? Is that what they did to you? Well, listen, you're also part of the problem. I'm not sitting here going after women. It's 50-50. Both of you bought into this nonsensical type of idea. And now you're realizing it's not an idea I wanted to buy into, okay?
If I may go on a tangent for a second, men have been indoctrinated by patriarchy to believe that they should be breadwinners. They have also been indoctrinated by patriarchy to believe that they are inherently superior to women. That's why men are having such an extreme cognitive dissonance about why women are succeeding at such an alarming rate. Also coupled with the fact that men are completely ignoring why it was so easy to keep women out of the workforce in the past. It's because back in the day, the workforce was generally centered around manual labor. If you go back in history, you will actually find a time when women were treated much better than they are today. This was back in the tribal days. Contrary to popular belief, the idea that men hunting was the only way people survived back in the day is false. It was called hunting and gathering. They love to leave the part out of history that states the truth, which is that gathering was actually what people lived and survived on, and hunting was more of an occasional delicacy. In the early days, they didn't have advanced weapons. There could be weeks or even months in between success for the hunters, so the gathering was actually what kept people alive. Picking berries, plants, all of the things that were abundant among the land. And back then, women hunted and men also gathered. Of course, like all of our history, which is male and Euro-centered, the men were made out to be the heroes, like women would have just died off without men and their manly muscles to kill wild bears. This is why so many men have the idea that they built everything and women are completely helpless without them, even though our highest cause of unnatural, unaccidental death is at the hands of men, specifically the ones we let in our houses, the ones who claim to love us. Oh yes, but you are our saviors. What would we ever do without you? One of the major changes in society that contributed to men's extreme oppression of women was the agricultural revolution. Once the agricultural revolution started and capitalism became the focus instead of survival and taking care of each other, like Africans and indigenous people were doing before their lives were destroyed by colonizers, the pursuit of wealth by men is when women became subjugated more and more. For the first time, there was an abundance of crops. Producing crops in surplus and making money off of it became the focus instead of just survival and taking care of each other. Men, from the beginning of the time of capitalism, started using women in whatever way they could to benefit the production of more resources. That meant keeping them pregnant to produce more bodies, to produce more workers, to make more money. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Men then hoarded the agricultural resources and delegated women to cooking and cleaning to support them while they accumulated wealth from the agricultural revolution. And the only way women could get some of that wealth is to become property of a man. Now stick with me here because we're getting back to why men today, men like Patrick, are completely delusional. What they don't realize is that the system of patriarchy was drastically dependent on the size and strength advantage of men. The agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, manufacturing, all of these different systems, they were all industries that required muscle and manpower. Now, this was working for men perfectly until technology started to advance at an alarming rate. Machines can replace muscle. Now we're in a digital age where intelligence, creativity, emotional IQ, charisma, ambition, innovation, all of these are things that build wealth these days. Are there still manual labor jobs? Are there still manufacturing jobs? Sure, but the rich white men in this country decided that they'd rather move those jobs out of America and have men, women, and children in third world countries do the same jobs for a fraction of the cost. So we're not going to blame the corporations who literally took your jobs from you so they save on costs at your expense. I don't hear any of these angry men blaming the rich elite who replaced them with machines. I don't hear any of these men blaming the white male leaders of this country who turned housing into an unaffordable amenity. I don't hear any of these men blaming their parents for raising them to believe that they just had to exist, and as a man, they would be showered with a career and a woman, and if they don't have those things, it's of no fault of their own. It's women's fault for asking for jobs and rights and wealth without having to say I do and give sex to a man.
So, if you got value and you agree with this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I don't think it's going to be many of you. But if you're like, screw you, Pat, comment below. I'm going to read all your comments to see what you really have to say. I'll pay attention to your comments. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, I got another one. You're going to love the title of this next one. You ready for this one? The title of this next one is Why Men Live Harder Lives Than Women. Oh my God, I'm sure the title just fired you up. Go watch the video and either get a little bit more insight or get pissed off, whichever kind of a person you are. Go enjoy that video. Take care, everybody. Love you. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
There's really zero accountability for these insecure, misogynistic men. And this video is proof. Patrick has a 1950s idealism, but he's failing to realize that it's 2024 and men can't handle being the primary breadwinner clearly, because so many of them aren't doing it and aren't capable of doing it. One of the biggest problems in society today is imagining an ideal that doesn't fit with our current reality. That's called being delusional. There's no call for men to make more money, no call for men to get more educated, no call for men to put down the video games, no call for men to stop looking at Instagram models thinking they can get a 10 when they're a 2. And so you can start to see how all this red pill rhetoric just backs women into a corner with no way to figure out how to keep a man happy. I mean, basically, if you show signs of leadership, he's going to melt down. If you start making more money than him, he's going to melt down. If you're not feminine enough, he's going to have a meltdown. One of the reasons why the Patricks and the Andrew Tates are so dangerous is because they're so far removed from the lifestyle of the men who consume their content, that they keep men in this perpetual state of delusion and discomfort in life. For Patrick, who's rich, it's really easy to walk around with his unpleasant personality and his mediocre level of attractiveness, and women will fall over to get at him because he has money, and somehow expects the average man to have the same demands in a partner when he has a lot less to offer. Yes, rich men like Patrick may get the partner of their choice, but they're getting chosen because of their money and their status. Yes, money can buy you women, but money buys you women who want men with money. If you're going to play the game, don't complain. Men are just going to have to get over the idea of having a 1950s housewife in a 2025 society. Men collectively don't make enough money to be propagating this trad wife idealism. So honestly, Patrick set out to make a video about how women with ambition are ruining everything, when really it's literally an ad for why women should and better be hypergamous, because it's the only option that gives you the freedom to achieve and earn without your husband becoming increasingly insecure about your accomplishments. You can't truly love someone if you resent their growth and their achievements. Patrick, you're an idiot. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and write in the comments what other types of videos you would like to see.